Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com. Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Jim Flock of JSF Industrial and also the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership, and we'll talk about both of those in a moment. But Jim, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Frank, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
And, well, obviously, we're in a part of the state to start off with. A personal question I like to ask. We're in an area that has seen lots of people moving in from lots of places, and what I've learned is my guests like to hear a little bit about where people came from and how they got here. So, tell us where you're from, and if you're not from this area, how you wound up in southeastern North Carolina.
All right. Well, people can usually tell me from my accent right away that I'm not born and bred local over here.
I thought that was a Columbus County native accent.
Oh, okay. No, I come from a little further away than that, actually. I moved down here from Long Island about 10 years ago. I've been in manufacturing my whole career. I've been doing machining, aerospace work for the last 40 plus years. And I had an opportunity to run a place down here in North Carolina in Leland. And it was kind
Okay.
of funny when I was first approached. I said, North Carolina, why would I want to move there? I'm not leaving New York. It's where it's at. And I was a little disenchanted with my job, so I decided to talk to these people, and they wound up liking me, and I liked them, and we took a shot at it. And next thing I knew, 10 years later, this is home now. I love it down here. It's amazing. The people have
And you
been
don't have
so,
to own a snow shovel.
what? No. And I still have family up in New York, so every once in a while I go up there. I went up there for the holidays a couple of years ago, and it was a big snowstorm.
Mm.
And I spent the entire week I was up there walking around like this, freezing my butt off. You know that. And I said, nope, that's it. This is going to be fewer and further between. And like I said, this is home now.
I like to look at snow through a nice warm window with a cup of coffee in my hand.
Oh, it's very nice. I love storms and things like that. And it's real nice to be able to watch that outside and watch the Weather Channel and everybody wringing their hands. But as
Exactly.
far as having to deal with it and shoveling it and driving it, not for me anymore. Thank you.
Well, obviously, we'll get to talking about work in a minute, but there are lots of non-work related things that people love to do in this part of the state. So, what are some of the things that you like the most about this area outside of work, either things you like to do or places you like to go?
Well, what I do is very industrial. And so I always like to get in the outdoors. One of the things I've done since I was a young teenager is kayaking and camping, things like that. And I don't really get out there too much for the camping end of it and stuff, but I have two kayaks. I love to go out on the Northeast Cape Fear, spend an afternoon out there just paddling up and down the river a little bit, getting in touch with Mother Nature. That's really one of my favorite things. It helps me unwind and de-stress so much. It's not funny.
And you definitely picked a good place to live if you wanted to, if that's something you enjoy doing as well.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. And yeah,
And
it's really almost year round. You can do that.
well, you mentioned you've been in manufacturing for 40 years. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got started and what brought you to where you are now. And also, I'd love to hear about some of the changes you've seen in manufacturing over 40 years. I'm sure that it's night and day compared to how things used to work.
Well, I said 40 years, but it's actually a little closer to 60. I may not look that old. I'm 65. I just turned 65 recently. My father ran a machine shop up in Brooklyn
Okay.
way back in the 60s. And when my mother was busy with stuff, my dad would babysit me, and that involved bringing me into the shop, usually on like a Saturday morning or something like that, and then handing me off to one of the women that he supervised in the secondary department. So I was 6 years old and I was working on a drill press side by side, with like my grandmother and some of her friends and stuff that worked over there. So this has been, quite a long time. I went to school and I picked the wrong major and I wasn't, you know, doing what I wanted to do. My dad had a shop, and I decided to go to work for him. Long story short, he passed away. I wound up working for somebody else, and I was the first employee of this company up in New York. And I said, I'll give it a few months, and if it doesn't work out, I'm going to go back to school. And it wound up, I stayed there for 30 years. We grew to a 50 person company. And we did a lot of aerospace work, a lot of Boeing work for big companies up on Long Island, making landing gear components. And that was my initial introduction into the aerospace market. And from there on, we started growing the company. I got involved with things like quality management systems, AS 9100 certification. I was very fortunate in that my boss let me do the things in the shop to grow professionally that I needed to go, but he also exposed me to other things such as negotiating, dealing with customers, the HR end of things and stuff. So I've gotten a wide overview. I've done every job in a shop, from basically cleaning out the bathrooms to running the place. And so it's enabled me and given me a pretty large skill set. And when I was approached to come down here in North Carolina, I said, you know what, let me give it a shot. And I came here in November of 2015, so it's almost exactly 10 years. And like I said, I have no intention of going back. I was working for 8 years, actually for just about 10 years, I worked for this company. And unfortunately, about 2 years ago, I started having some health issues, and it was just a domino effect, one after the other after the other. And it culminated last year, and I had a heart attack, a pretty severe heart attack. Actually, that's going to be 1 year ago tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah. And at some point, I decided to take a leave of absence, and I realized while I was out that I couldn't do this, deal with the pressure and everything anymore. But I still had something to contribute. So I decided to go out on my own, and I started JSF Industrial. And I have a lot of contacts in the area because one of the things in my scope, in my day job, let's call it at the time, was involved in training our workforce, and it was a point of frustration for me. I told you you're going to get me started on this once I start talking about it. It became a point of frustration for me because my company at the time really didn't pay for professional progressions on people that we hired. And we used to hire a lot of people who had minimal skills, and we brought them up, and they would regularly parlay those skills into better positions. And that's not their fault. I appreciate that they have to do what they have to do, but it became very frustrating for me.
Right.
And it became one of my hobbies to complain to a friend of mine who was on the workforce board over here. And she invited me to join the workforce board.
Funny
And
how that works.
yeah, it really is. But it proved very beneficial. And out of that, we wound up forming the Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership. And that's one of the things that I really would like to talk about today, because that's been a group of manufacturers who are having the same struggles that I was having, finding and retaining their workforce, training people, losing them to other companies, bigger companies in the area. And so we had 6 of us at the time, I think, that gathered together, and we formed a mission statement. We got registered as 501c3. And from that point on, that was about 4 years ago. And now we're up to over 70 companies in the manufacturing partnership, including some of the biggest ones in our area. And we've grown great guns with that. In the meantime, too, I was still working in my other place. But like I said, once I had my health issues, I decided to form my own company. And JSF Industrial is working with several companies in the area, the community colleges in the area, working on primarily training. I had originally gotten into it thinking I could help companies with things like AS 9100 certification, their quality management systems, and industrial efficiencies, reducing waste on the shop floor. But my sweet spot has turned out to be training. And so I'm working with Cape Fear Community College, Brunswick Community College, and a couple of the big manufacturers in the area right now, developing and working on training programs for incoming staff. And it's really been exciting.
When training is so important, I heard a quote, and you've probably heard this, that the accountant asked the CEO, said, "What if we pay to train them and they leave?" And CEO said, "What if we don't pay to train them and they stay?"
Yes, I've heard
And I
that.
think that that's the dichotomy, and, I've got a very small business, but I'm a huge believer in developing my people, and if they leave, they'll be the best employee someone else was lucky to get because I trained them for them. And, you don't want them to leave, but if you invest in people, they're gonna do a good job for you, and then you've also hopefully made them not just a better employee, but a better person.
That's the idea, and that's been a big part of the approach I've taken, whether it was in my old job or in my current scope. I believe it's important that we set foundations, fundamental, give people a set of good skills, and at the same time, make them, like you said, hopefully make them a little bit of a better person and stuff like that. Be cognizant of your place in society, what your contributions are, and things like that, and work hard to maximize that.
No. Well, let's talk about the manufacturing partnership. You mentioned you've started with, I believe you said 4 companies and they're up to about 70 now. Tell us what kind of things you're focusing on and what kind of value you hope to deliver your members and what your vision for that organization is moving forward.
Well, the biggest thing, and I think our main reason for existence is, like I said, I'm 65. I've been in school since the 60s. From the time I was a kid in school, I heard stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. Manufacturing jobs are going away. Ever since the end of World War II, there's been a concerted effort to move these manufacturing jobs overseas. On some levels, I might go a little sideways here. I'm sorry, but on some
It's
levels,
okay.
it was necessary. I mean, the world economy was really in tatters after World War II, and we were the only real superpower on the planet, and it was kind of incumbent on us to help to rebuild things, and we did a great job of that. And a large part of that was by helping to rebuild the economies of some of our enemies in many cases and their industrial base. But at the same time, we've done that, like I said, with this public policy of demeaning manufacturing jobs in this country. So a lot of these things have been offshored. At the end of World War II, manufacturing and service was split roughly about 56% manufacturing, 44% service based on our economy. Now that has turned on its head to the point where we're over 80% service based and only about, I think, 15 or 16% of our economy is dedicated to manufacturing these days. In the meantime, people have been going to school, living their lives, generating their careers and having families and everything like that. But they're doing it in more professional and different sectors of the economy. And I think that we've lost sight of the importance of manufacturing in our country. And now recent developments, things such as the pandemic, brought around a lot of issues with supply chain. And you hear, rumblings from policymakers, politicians these days and stuff that we're going to bring manufacturing back to America. We need to bring manufacturing back to America in a certain extent because we can't support the needs of our society these days if we had to do this independently. If we ever get into a major conflict again, or should I say, when we get into a major conflict again, we are not going to be able to support that like we did in years past and in wars previous. So I think it's critical for us to be able to not bring everything back. I don't want us to be the world champion in low paid, low skilled jobs, but the high tech stuff, the more demanding stuff, the engineering of jobs, the implementation of new technologies these days and everything, I think it's critical for us to keep that close to home. And it's on people like us, not really so much the policymakers as so much the businessmen and corporate decision makers that are going to make those changes. And the manufacturing partnership is working towards doing that. An advocate for manufacturing careers, for manufacturing technologies and companies. And I think we've started to make some major headroads in that, especially in our area over here.
You covered a lot in a short amount of time there. And I think, I remember when I was in school that it was almost beaten into our heads that if you don't go get a 4-year degree and get a white collar job, that you don't measure up to those people who do. And I think that was a huge disservice to students because they were pushed down a path that not only is not right for everybody, but then it made them look down on other paths. And I think that was, to your point, we kind of downplayed manufacturing as something that, was not an ideal career path, And I know people that make so much money in blue collar jobs and make far more money than people who have a huge amount of college debt for a white collar degree with no job attached to it.
That's very true. I've managed to do okay for myself over the years.
Oh,
And what you said is exactly correct. There was somewhere you hear we're going to, those machine shop jobs or welding jobs are dirty, they're dangerous. We don't want to do them here anymore. And maybe that was true back in the 40s and the 50s. But nowadays, I mean, if you take a walk through any high end, sophisticated machine shop, you're going to see 4 or 5 axis machines. You're going to see CNC machine parts. You're going to see guys there wearing lab coats. You're going to see inspection technicians walking around handling computerized equipment and high tech stuff. And yeah, we still make chips there. There's still dirt on the floor and stuff. I'm not going to lie about that. Some people will tell you that doesn't exist anymore, but really we're somewhere in between what we want to be in the manufacturing community and what we express that we are, I think. But it's very different. It's very different. And the skills needed and the knowledge that's necessary to perform a lot of these tasks is right up there with just about any 4 year degree or further.
As
And
far as
people
the
don't
work,
recognize that. And we need to make people aware of that.
I agree with that. My first 2 summers out of high school, I worked in a paper mill, and it was because my father worked there, and they had a program for kids that were going to college to go work the summers and make a higher rate than you'd make working in a restaurant. We got paid minimum wage was 3.35 then, and we were getting $8 to $10 an hour. So it wasn't bad for somebody right out of high school, but it was, the old school manufacturing you talk about what we saw. It was not the more modern technology driven things now. And it's just having had a chance to tour some of our local manufacturing companies, when what you talked about, the way technology is being used and the level of knowledge that's required to do that. When you see the workforce needs, what do you think that there's a bigger imperative on training new people to come into those places, or helping the people who have been working there upskill so that they can keep working there, or is it both?
I think it's a combination of both. We need to upskill our current workers. You had asked me before about some of the changes I've seen in manufacturing, and I kind of went sideways on you there, but
That's
some of the
okay.
stuff some of the stuff that's going on these days, I mean, especially with the implementation of things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality out on the shop floor, we need to bring our people up to speed on those things. People need to keep improving their skills. But at the same time, because of this concerted effort over the years to demean manufacturing jobs, a lot of kids don't even consider jobs in the manufacturing community. And that needs to change.
I
A good
agree.
friend of mine is a professor over at UNCW, and he teaches a course on, graduating from school and getting job placement and employment and stuff. And these are all uh, 4 year students or even MBAs or higher. And he's got, I think he told me, we were talking the other day, I think he told me he's got 140 something students. And he asked them how many of them were looking to get involved in manufacturing careers. 4 students raised their hand. Everybody else was planning to be some sort of what they call professional in legal, medical,
Yeah,
or some other fields like that. And that was a little disheartening to hear that. So these are things that we need to address. And that's been a big part of it is advocacy on the manufacturing end and making people aware of the opportunities that they have because most people in this area don't know. I can't tell you in my old job how many people came in there and had a meeting and they'd say, man, I had no idea what you guys did over here. I thought this place was just a crappy little warehouse. And, they're doing sophisticated 4 or 5 axis work for F-35 fighters and other things like that. And they had no idea what's going on. And I think a lot of people don't know what's going on.
there's some amazing little companies over here in the Leland Innovation Park, as they've called it now, and over in New Hanover County. And people, again, like you said, they have no idea what's being done right under their nose, and there's some amazing things going on.
I
Um,
agree. I had an opportunity recently to walk through General Electric and tour some of the stuff. I'm working with them to train some of their students on their apprenticeship program that they have going on right now. And I was just absolutely blown away by some of the things they did. And I was aware of this and everything, but to see some of these machines in action and stuff, I still think they're really cool. I've been doing this
yeah.
forever.
My nephew works there. We'll talk afterward and make sure he's not one of your bad students if you've had to have the training, but, he's been there for a while, so I'm sure the way he's moved up, he's probably a good one, but, anything else you wanna know about the people want people to know about the partnership, or how can if somebody's involved in manufacturing here and isn't aware of you, how can they find out about the partnership and get involved?
Well, we've got our website, of course, capefearmfg.com is the partnership website. You'll see links up there. We have job postings. We have information about all our members. We have a meeting coming up actually on November 12th at Cape Fear Community College at McKeithan Center. That'll be from 4 to 6:30 in the evening. And it's an open house. Anybody is welcome to come, especially if you're involved in the manufacturing community. If you own a business or run a business, or really if you're just part of the business, especially on the HR end of it and stuff, we'd love to come see you.
Okay.
Come shake my hand or one of my executive board members. We usually have nice presentations. We're going to have somebody from UNCW speaking on workforce development a
Okay.
little bit and some of the programs that they have going on. That's going to be happening in a couple of weeks. We meet quarterly, and we have other people out in the community and stuff like that. You could email me at jsfindustrialexcellence.com, and I will forward that over to my partners in the partnership. And
Okay, great.
we are always looking for new companies to join our ranks, and people just to be aware of what we're doing. We've got a lot of things going on. I mean, some of it is just as mundane as an email thread. When one of our members sends out an email and says, "Hey, I need a new accountant." I had somebody email not too long ago. They needed a source for pallets for their warehouse, and then some people send out resumes of some students that come across their desk, or they'll say, "Hey, I need a manufacturing engineer or somebody to do this or that." And that's been one of the real beneficial things that you didn't even think about when we first formed the partnership, but it's just the constant contact between each one of the companies and stuff.
Well, and that's probably also a great way for local manufacturers to find local suppliers they didn't know about. And I'm a believer that, if a large manufacturer can find somebody local to provide something rather than having to buy it somewhere else, it helps strengthen the local economy and builds those cottage industries and builds a business community that's strong for this whole part of the state. Yeah.
I agree. And we're seeing, you know, results like that. And I think it's going to be more and more important going over the next few years, especially in this area over here. Our area is still growing, a great deal.
Definitely.
Brunswick County is the fastest growing county in the state. I'm one of the fastest growing counties in the
In the
country.
nation.
And that's a large part due to attracting of manufacturing companies and things. And North Carolina has been extremely aggressive in recruiting manufacturing companies to come here. So now this all ties in nicely with what we're doing, because these companies are going to need staff. These companies are going to need people to be trained. These companies are going to need an ongoing flow of talent. And if they don't succeed in getting that, then they're not going to continue to come here. So this is critically important what we're doing right now, I think.
In some ways, it's a chicken and egg, and which comes first, the jobs or the talent? You've got to have, the talent's got to have jobs to work in, but the jobs have got to have talent to fill them, or the company can't function. And that's I hear that from a lot of employers now. The struggle finding good talent and keeping good talent is one of their biggest issues they face.
Well, that's why it's kind of worked out nicely for me with my little career change over here, because training has turned out to be my sweet spot. And I don't see that really changing anytime in the next few years. This is going to continue to be a need in this community. And I think that, as people become more aware of the opportunities to them in manufacturing, I mean, think about it. We live in a great area. We talked about that at the beginning of our conversation. Beautiful weather, nice amenities all over the place and everything. People come here for vacation all the time. But a lot of people don't recognize it as being a manufacturing hotspot. Even a lot of the younger members of our community, when they think of careers here, they think it's going to be in some sort of professional field or hospitality or something like that. And one of the things I've been trying to express to my students or anybody who'll listen to me, you for example, that there are great opportunities in manufacturing. I'll make a better living being a manufacturing engineer or a programmer or some sort of administrator or quality person in just about any shop in the area than I would, flipping sheets in a hotel or working behind a bar in a restaurant or something like that. And I look at those jobs as more transitory, pay for college kind of things like that, in your education and stuff. But if you really want a livelihood, you want to raise a family, buy a house and things like that, you need a solid, steady income, and you need a professional progression where you can climb up the ladder if you're so inclined and talented. And I think manufacturing gives more people an avenue to do that than most other careers do.
And I agree with that. And I think, going back to something we talked that you mentioned earlier, I think it's so important for us to in America in general to get back to making things, rather than buying things made somewhere else, especially from especially when buying things from countries that really don't like us. That's a whole different podcast we could probably get into. I think it's
Well, you'll
important
start to talk about the political side of me here, but honestly, this is something we had manufacturing day over in Brunswick Community College last week. We had students from 3 different high schools go and tour GCM, a local manufacturer.
Right.
And then they came into our shop and we had an active class going on at the time. And we had about 40 students from different high schools in the area. And I talked to a couple of them, and it was amazing that they did not know about any of the stuff that was available to them in the area. And, but that's starting to change now, I think.
Yeah. Well, anything else about the partnership before we ask a couple final questions and wrap this up and let us both get back to work this afternoon?
Uh, no, the partnership, I think, is something that, again, if you have a small business, if you're involved in manufacturing in any way, shape, or form, please reach out to us. Please come to attend our meetings. We're growing. I actually went to the North Carolina workforce partnership meeting in Greensboro last week as well. And somebody approached me and said, man, I've heard about you guys and stuff. You have the most effective and the best sector partnership in the state, maybe one of the top few in the country. And that tells me that we're doing things right, because it's a homegrown effort. There's small and large businesses involved. We're getting input from all our members. We're getting support from all our members. And these are things that I envision eventually that the manufacturing partnership will be the North Carolina manufacturing partnership, and maybe on some extension, the United States, the greater American manufacturing partnership. Because you mentioned it earlier, people that don't necessarily like us are making a lot of stuff for us these days. If we get into a conflict with China or something like that, are they going to make our airplane parts? Are they going to make our tank parts and guns? I'm pretty sure no.
And are we going to trust them if they do?
Oh,
That's a whole
God, no.
different
I would like
too.
to think not. It's funny you
I know.
mentioned, talking to people about, tangible goods, things that are made. And when I was talking to the students at Manufacturing Day last week, I said, think about it. Everything in this room, everything except our physical bodies, the clothes you wear, the phone that you're playing with over there instead of listening to me talk, the pen that you're writing with, this machine that's running here next to us, everything here is manufactured. The clothes on our back, whether that's manufactured here in the U.S., overseas, that doesn't make a difference. It has to be made somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think we certainly covered a lot of important topics, and I'm excited to see what you guys continue to do. One thing I love for people to get when they listen to this podcast is some advice that they can take back with them personally as well. So, one question I like to ask is, what's something you've learned during the course of your career that you wish you had known when you started out?
One thing I really wish that I had done is that I had gotten involved earlier. I've spent most of my time raising my son, living my life, growing professionally and everything like that. And I mentioned all the things that I've gotten involved in recently, and that's in the last 10 years or so. And I really wish that I had known my worth and gotten involved with that sooner rather than later. You hear a lot of people complaining, I don't like this, I don't like that, whether you agree or disagree with the way our country's going. Everybody complains about something, but very few people step up and get involved. And getting involved has been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. And I think it's important, and I would wish I had done it earlier.
I think that's great advice, and especially the generations coming up now seem to be less inclined to join anything than prior generations were, and I think part of it's because of social media, but I would take what you said about getting involved and encourage them to join their professional association, join something in their community and get out and get involved and make that difference. But it's easy, like you said, to hunker down and just focus on your work, but there's more to it than that. So I think that's great advice.
Thank you.
Uh,
And I firmly believe that, and I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to advocate for that, you know, any chance I get.
Well, and similar but different question. If somebody came to you and said, I'm right out of college and I'd like to have a manufacturing career, what advice would you give that person just starting out?
Um, I would tell that person something I think a little different than what a lot of other advisors and stuff would say, because I always hear people say, follow your passion. You're going to succeed if you follow your passion. I disagree with that. I think you have to identify, not to a certain extent, I disagree with that. Of course, it makes life a lot easier if you enjoy what you're doing. But I think you need to figure out what you're really good at.
That is very true.
Find your value, find what you can contribute, because the things that you're good at are going to be the things that are going to allow you to grow and become a better person and become a more competent professional. And I might like making parts on a machine, right? But if I'm pushing that button every day for 30 years and not getting anywhere, and I'm just beating my head against the wall, after a while it gets old. It gets difficult to get out of bed and get over there and generate that same enthusiasm. But if it's something that I'm good and I'm following that, and I say, okay, well, I'm good at making stuff, but I want to do more. So I'll get into design or engineering or quality or HR or management or something like that, and recognize that I can continue to grow. I think that those are things that are very important, and we have to, keep an eye on.
And if you're fortunate enough to find where the things that you're good at and the things you're passionate about intersect, then you've hit a home run.
There you
If you
go.
can find that. But,
Then you're
your passions
lucky.
change over time too. That's another thing.
That's it. And well, that's another thing too, that people don't recognize, that, just because you've worked in this field or that field all your career doesn't mean that you're pigeonholed and that's what you do. We all have sellable skills. We all have transferable skills. I know one of my students over at Brunswick right now is a guy who's 40 years old, and he's well educated. He's been involved in training in the medical field and everything like that now, but he's gotten involved in the manufacturing side of things, and he's looking to make a career change like that, and he's negotiating with a few companies in the area. And these are things that he's good at it,
Right.
And so now he's going to grow professionally, and he'll be able to pursue that.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that I would advise people to keep in mind.
Yeah. To go back to the idea that some people think you should only focus on what you're passionate about. When I was in high school, I was passionate about playing basketball, but I am 5'7" and cannot jump. I was not going to make a living doing that, no matter how passionate I was about it. So yeah, you've got to find
I
something
know
you're
that
good at as
feeling.
well.
Yeah, I know that feeling. It's funny that you say that too, because one of the things I say every once in a while is to talk about machining. I'm good at that. I learned some of that from my father, quite a bit of it. I wish he would have taught me to hit a curveball or carry a tune so I could sing in a band. But this is what I know, and this is what it turned out to be my path.
Well, to close it out, and this is a question you can talk about something you read for education or something personal. But what are you either currently reading? What types of podcasts do you listen to, or what do you like to watch on movies or TV that people might want to know about?
Oh, wow. I'm very into historical fiction and historical novels. I'm reading two novels right now. Actually, one is a reread, Shogun by James Clavell.
Right.
One of the best books I ever read in my life. It's about English explorers back in the 1600s, right on the change of the century over there, who stumbled into Japan. Excuse me, princess. Sorry, my cat's starting to attack me. She's saying
Cats are no respecters of Zoom calls.
No, they are not. Surprised, she's been pretty good. She didn't jump into my lap once, but now she's getting ready to. But Shogun is one of the best books I've ever read. It gives you a glimpse into the way things used to be and into different societies. And I always like to explore things like that. And then another book I'm reading, kind of similar concept, is to Tontine. And this is an old book that I found in my parents' attic when I was cleaning it out years ago, and I just stumbled across it a couple months ago. And it's about this family that grows up in 18th century England and how they grow and develop actually quite a large manufacturing conglomerate, coincidentally.
Okay.
And those are two of the
Interesting.
books that I'm reading right now. And TV, I've been trying to stay away from. I tend to
That's
veg
probably a
too
good idea.
much.
What's your cat's name?
Princess,
Princess. We
yes.
have a gray tabby named Samantha that is the queen of our house and allows us to
Mm.
live there.
Okay, yeah, that's this one over here.
Yep.
Say
They
hello,
look
baby.
very similar. She looks a lot like our cat.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great. I've had her since she was about 3 weeks old.
Okay.
And the first day I got her, I'm sorry, I'm moving my phone around there.
That's okay.
The first day I got her, she came and she fell asleep on my chest over here, and she was no bigger than the palm of my hand, and we fell in love with each other, and it's been that way since. I'm a
Excellent.
big animal lover. If I
Well,
walk
Jim,
outside in the backyard now, I'm gonna be assaulted by about 2 dozen ducks that want me to feed them.
they're going to expect food when you come out.
Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you talking about the importance of manufacturing, and maybe another time we can talk more in depth about workforce because I think we could probably have a whole podcast just on workforce development. That sounds like a good thing to do. But I appreciate your time and you being with us today. And for those that are home watching this or listening to it when it airs, we hope you'll follow us online. And if you're interested in the manufacturing partnership, go to, let's see, it's capefearmfg.com. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Go to that website and contact Jim and you can get more involved there. But thank you for being with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Frank. I'd love to be back. I've got a lot to say in case you haven't noticed.
Never would have guessed. Thank you.
Thank you.